Hello, hello, beautiful people. Hi. So thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be in Mexico, and I'm here to tell you what design can really do through fashion. So here we go. So who is the orange boy? Oh, my mic has come off, but yeah. Who is the orange boy? So basically, I grew up in Nigeria, and look at me, a boy who wears heels, you know? So I didn't really fit into how society sort of perceived how men were supposed to express themselves. When you think about men, you think about hard, we don't cry, we don't emote, we dress in a very certain way. But I grew up in a space where I always was confronted by how different I sort of presented myself as a man. And so when I was younger, I was about 16 years old, I wrote an article called The Orange Boy. And this article was basically just about sort of sitting in who I am and in my identity as a boy in Nigeria, sort of being different and accepting my difference. And so Orange Boy sort of created a safe space for a lot of Nigerian boys who look like me, and even girls who look like me, who felt different, who felt underrepresented, and who felt like they didn't fit into society. And so Orange Boy created a space for people to sort of communicate that difference and to feel safe. And so when I wanted to start my own brand, Orange Culture sort of was the genesis of that all, because I wanted to create a brand that created sort of safety for different expressions of gender, especially when it came to myself, because I found that masculinity was very much tied to toxic sort of views of how men were supposed to be. And so I wanted to challenge that with my brand. What are the things that motivate me to create? So I live in Nigeria, and a lot of people here, if I ask you about Nigeria, there's not a lot of notions that you have about the country. But a lot of the time when I go around and I say I'm Nigerian, people are like, oh my God, Nigeria, oh, do you have malaria shots? Are you sick? There's a lot of things that people think about the country that aren't necessarily positive. And so for me, I see fashion as a platform to sort of challenge that. And with my brand, I've always sort of brought light to sort of where Nigeria is and what Nigeria has to say. Whether it's through the clothes that we design, through the quality of work that we have, and even through the culture. Because fashion is a platform that can be used to express culture. It can be used to express differentiation. It can be used to express beauty. And I think that I've used fashion to express just how beautiful Nigeria is and how my continent is as well. African design. A lot of the time when people say African design, it kind of, it makes me a bit uncomfortable because there's a lot of notions around how African design is supposed to be. And what is funny is that when you think about design, if you think about a lot of countries, Europe, for example, as a continent, there's not a lot tied to how Europeans are supposed to design. When you think about Africa, there's a very, very strict sort of allowance. It's like we always have to shoot our collections in poor areas. It's like we have to be sitting in a hut. We have to be around animals. We have to be very much in this strict box. And for me, I always thought to myself that I'm an African who grew up in Nigeria. I wasn't like 2 years old and I was moved to Europe. I grew up in Nigeria. I went to school in Nigeria. My family is Nigerian. But I also experienced Nigeria from a very different point of view. And that point of view was very much underrepresented in the media. Every time I thought about African design, or every time I saw African design, which was very little, by the way, it was always in a very specific type of expression. Don't allow people limit the way you express yourself. Representation. I'm a black designer. It's very obvious, I can't get away with it. When I was younger, I always used to say, there weren't a lot of people that looked like me. I was younger and I always wanted to be a fashion designer. My parents did not want me to be a designer. And the reason was because they couldn't see a reason why I would want to aspire to something that didn't exist. It's like I was young, and when they said who inspired me, I would always think of white designers, Karl Lagerfeld. Those are the people I could see on TV. Those are the people I could envision, Saint Laurent. There was no one who looked like me. There was no one who sounded like me. There was no one who represented the shade that I am. And so for me, it's very important to understand that the place that I've been given, this platform, is a representation of my color, of my race. And so I don't ignore that ever. So for me, one of the things that really inspires me to be a designer and to stand in the sort of confidence of my designs is knowing that I represent a lot of black people who will dream and see me as an opportunity to aspire to become something great. Stereotypes, thank you. So stereotypes around gender. This I'm very passionate about. I feel like this is sort of the whole essence of how my brand sort of created. A lot of the time, I was bullied growing up, and I was bullied because I looked different, I sounded different. I remember I used to go to school, and my teacher would say, speak louder, your voice is too soft. This is to this. It was always this sort of like weakness that was attached to femininity, which I still don't understand because women are strong. I mean, to be honest, they give birth to children. I can't do that. It's not very possible. But just sort of the notion around gender is very much important to me, and how people have used this idea of toxic masculinity to sort of restrain us from self-expression. If you look at a lot of the percentages of people who commit suicide, a lot of the time it's in men. Men are higher rates of suicide, especially from where I come from. And it's because a lot of men have tied their masculinity to this repression of emotionality and vulnerability. They don't want to express how they feel. They're sad, but they don't want to express it because they've been told you're not allowed to. And so for me, I look at all those toxic traits and I challenge them with my brand. I believe that men should be allowed to express themselves emotionally. They should be in touch with who they are. Emotionality is strength, it's not a weakness. And that I express through my brand as well. Political conversations. I come from a country with a lot of political issues. And so with my brand, I'm very much conversational about it. We've had protests, and we're very much involved in protests a lot of the time. Emotions, I've said that already. Home, I've attached that already. Self-expression. I think that as people, sometimes I look at social media, and everything just looks the same. Everyone is attached themselves to a specific expression of how they're supposed to look. It's very robotic. It's very, this celebrity is wearing this, so I have to also wear that. But I believe that we should be able to express ourselves in various ways. We shouldn't be restrained by agendas. We shouldn't be restrained by how social media has told us we're supposed to look, act, or speak. I believe that we should all express ourselves freely and beautifully, and our brand constantly speaks for liberation on that. So what can design really do? It's a very important question. Preserve culture. Where I've come from, a lot of time, fashion has been a huge part of preserving cultural relevance. A lot of our stories are untold. Especially for me, when I was growing up, a lot of history was deleted and we weren't spoken to about where we've come from, what we've done, or how we've gotten to where we are. And fashion and arts have been such a huge part about sort of preserving that culture and sort of introducing people to that culture as well. The reason that you know this Nigerian designer is because maybe of social media and because fashion has been such a big platform that has introduced you to this Nigerian designer. So I'm here because I'm preserving that culture and I'm communicating it to many of you who will now know of Nigeria through Nigerian fashion. So fashion does do that. Preserving local techniques. So this is one of our fabric techniques that we have back home. It's called Ashoke weaving. And a lot of the time, these fabrications have died because a lot of people just didn't use them, because when we were younger, we were taught that white was right, basically. And so we're told to use fabrics from other countries because they were stronger fabrics. So buy your fabrics from London, from Italy. Don't use your fabrics from home. Don't touch them, they're not good. And so fashion has brought that relevance back to some of our fabrications. Ashoke, Adire, people are now introducing them to the world. And now we sell our clothes in stores all over the world. And through that, we've preserved that technique. People are now buying Ashoke and Adire and are wearing it in different parts of the world. And so we've created relevance to that fabrication and to that technique as well. Creating employment opportunities. We produce locally, and so a lot of the time, when you produce within your home base, you're creating employment opportunities for people around you. Fashion is not just about clothing, it's about doing much more. And I think that for me, when you think about being a fashion designer, it's not a glamorous thing. It's a business, and part of the business is creating opportunities for other people to work as well. It's contributing to the economy through employment. It's about giving people jobs. So don't always go to China. Look at your home. Give people a chance to also develop their skill sets and give them opportunities to work as well. Fashion saves lives. I always say this. For me as a designer, it's very important about how the clothes are being made. I know all the people that I work with, every tailor, every person, every weaver, every dyer, everybody that makes my clothes. I know every part, everything that's being made. And lots of people don't. They don't involve themselves in that. I think it's important to know the community that builds your clothes. And that's how you save lives, because not only are you seeing fashion as something superficial, you're seeing it as something that develops a community and builds a community. So know the people that make your clothes. Celebrate the people that make your clothes. Know where they've come from. Know if they're okay. And that's what we've done over the years. We know everyone that's in the supply chain of our brand. I think that's also very important because a lot of brands have lost that. That's why fast fashion is really just killing the community and killing the economy, because we don't even know the people that are making the clothes. There are children who aren't eating, but are making the shirts that you're buying for £2, £5, instead of you to buy from brands who actually know the support system that creates their clothing. So I think it's important to do that. These are some of the things that we really take passionately as a brand. Local production, local fabric sourcing. We have a mentorship program because we believe in community development. Our people are the strength of our brand. So if people around us are not developing, then there's no point continuing. So we give people access to knowledge. Back home, we don't have fashion schools back home. And so through the brand, we give people opportunities through our Orange mentorship. We teach. We call you in. We give you opportunities to learn a skill set. No matter how small it is, we're transferring that knowledge and giving people the opportunity to build brands that will also succeed and be one day bigger than some of the brands that we see even on TV. Waste management. We're very conscious about our waste. Everything that we leave, we kind of turn into something else. When we had COVID, we turned all our waste into masks and we're giving them to hospitals. When we had COVID, we were turning them into different shirts that we were giving into hospitals. So we find ways to sort of reuse the waste rather than dumping it in the ocean. Collaboration. We collaborate across borders. We pave the way through collaboration, giving other brands the access that we have as well. I think it's very important that you find ways to collaborate with people all over the world and all over the continent as well. Give them access to what you have and also gain from them as well. And that's the best way, that we don't appropriate, but we instead appreciate. Once we learn to collaborate with each other, like we're doing now, I'm giving you some of my knowledge and I'm taking knowledge from some of you. That's how we also begin to exchange that knowledge and we appreciate where we've all come from and the knowledge that we all have. Positive light on Nigeria. This is some of my work. If this isn't positive, I don't know what is. When you see this, you should be able to say, wow, this is from Nigeria. You can see this in stores. We sell in London, we sell in Paris, we sell in different places. And our clothes speak of something strong. It strengthens where I come from. And I want people to always be able to envision that. When you see the clothes, you think of beauty, you think of something creative, you think of vulnerability, as I've said. I mean, look at the men that we represent. We're pushing that boundary. You know, we're not trying to be safe. And so the brand is always doing that. It's challenging what you know. And I think that it's important that when you're creating a brand, think about what it is that you want to do and always challenge the problems that you face. Don't be comfortable just making a shirt and saying, oh, it's nice. Make something that's small, that lives in the minds and in the hearts of people. Thank you so much.